What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm super excited to share my thoughts on Ghosts of Tsushima that PlayStation very kindly offered me a code for. I'm going to be focusing mainly on cognitive accessibility in this episode as it's the thing that I personally struggle with the most, but if you are looking for any blind, deaf, hard of hearing accessibility reviews, I will leave links to some of my favourites in the description below. Ghosts of Tsushima is a third-person action-adventure stealth game set in 13th century Japan, where you play as one of the last samurai warriors of his clan. Not gonna lie, I've been particularly excited to give this a go because it looks pretty assassin-y. It's a big open-world game, it's got lots of stealth, and you can creep up behind people and stab them in the neck, so it's right up my street. It also looks incredible. Like, I legitimately cannot express how pretty and stylish this game is. But let's move on and have a look at some of its accessibility features. The game starts up by letting you choose a difficulty. These difficulty options are pretty standard. You've got easy, medium, and hard. And while you can change the difficulty during the game if you're struggling, which is great, there's no further level of customization here like we've seen in some other games like Tomb Raider. On a bad day, I might struggle with the combat, but not necessarily the stealth, so being able to mess around a little bit further would be a good addition, although I've personally not had much trouble yet. Next up are the subtitles, and what's really cool here is that you can choose different languages for the audio and the subtitles. Personally, it helps me with processing if I am receiving the information in more than one way. So having an auditory and a visual cue at the same time just helps me process the information better. I'm much more likely to understand what's going on. I'm more likely to follow. And that's why I personally went with English and English just to help myself with that. Once you're past the first cutscene, you are able to hit pause and have a look at some of the options. The game has its own accessibility menu, but of course there are useful options in other categories too. The first thing I did was put the subtitle background on straight away, which makes it a lot clearer for me. Unfortunately, there isn't the option to resize the subtitles or any of the UI, but the default subtitles are relatively clear and easy to read for me personally. I did, however, struggle with the quest text in the top left when I played this downstairs in my living room. I was a little bit further away from the screen than I was on stream, so it was a little bit difficult to make out, but otherwise the simple, clean UI was done really well. The power and the health bar in the bottom left is pretty clear, but it's not intrusive. Although in some scenes with a lot of red, I do tend to lose the health bar a little bit, so some further definition or shadow would be helpful. You can also play around with the audio sliders, which can really help with auditory processing. I haven't personally had an issue with the sound mixing just yet, but I know that sometimes in certain games I'll need to turn certain game sounds up or down if there's a lot going on. The game does really well at teaching you the ropes without pulling you out of the story too much, with really clear prompts on screen and a nice little flashback training scene to teach you the basics of combat. You get a little backstory and some world building with these tutorials, so it doesn't feel like a total drag, and they were really useful in helping me pick up the controls. Sadly, you can't seem to play any of the tutorials or replay any of the cutscenes, which would be super cool for people like me with memory issues, but other than that, I think the onboarding was pretty great. I really struggle with my memory, so I enjoyed that the game gives you prompts for interactions in the world, and it also shows you a reminder of the controls in the pause menu to refresh your memory, which I did a lot. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like there's any remapping available or any options to simplify the controls. It does have a simplify controls option, which is a tad misleading as all it really seems to do is give you more time for quick time events. The biggest issue that I've had with this game in terms of cognitive accessibility is the navigation system. There's no minimap or compass directions on screen, but instead the game uses something called guiding wind. So when you have a waypoint selected, you swipe up and a big old gust of wind blows in the direction that you're meant to be going. Now, the issue with this is that the gust of wind picks up all kinds of leaves and debris and swirls it all around the screen, and while it's visually very stylish and unique, it's also really visually overwhelming, and I really had to focus very hard to try and figure out where the game was trying to direct me. I really wish there was some kind of alternative navigation system or a way I could customize how it looks so it's not as much of a sensory punch in the face. Because as beautiful as it looks, it really does feel a bit more like style over substance at this point. If we ignore the whole guiding wind thing, I think they did a pretty good job in terms of cognitive accessibility. There are definitely some improvements and minor tweaks that I would make, but all in all, I think the really simple, clean UI and the really thorough onboarding process means that I've been able to enjoy this game without too many barriers. It is an absolutely gorgeous experience, and I would definitely recommend picking it up and giving it a go if you can get past the freaking fart navigation system. I'm personally enjoying it a lot so far. It's definitely scratching that itch while I wait for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Obviously, everybody has different needs and different things that they would like from a game, so this is just my personal opinion, but please let me know what you thought of the game in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.